carnal, dice mi gente, la raza está abajo y tú estás indiferente. Prefieres cerrar los ojos, no vi nada. Estabas ocupado por andar en la tomada. Te gusta tirar el cruising todo el día, buscando a las mujeres como si el mundo acabaría. Pero no sabías que tú podías continuar tu educación para superarte en la vida. Hermano joven, levanta tu frente y siente el orgullo de ser un descendiente de los aztecas, los incas y los mayas. Ayúdame a pelear y vencer esta...
Antonio Díaz con su programa Mestizo Experience. Estamos en el mes de septiembre 2024 y hago este programa, ya tengo que voy para 30 años el próximo año. No sé qué tantos de ustedes todavía, los que empezaron a ver todavía viven o todavía siguen sintonizando este programa, pero aquí estamos todavía. Y como saben, hablamos de asuntos que afectan a las gentes indígenas, pero a todas las gentes, pero la mayoría a los derechos de las gentes indígenas y a toda otra gente, ¿no? El gobierno nacional, estatal, global y especialmente local. As Antonio Diaz with your program of Mestizo Experience. We're in the month of September 2024. I was saying in Spanish that next year I'll be on this program for 30 years. I don't know if there's any other program besides myself that's been on for 30 years, but it's been a long run. And those of you that are still alive that were watching me when I first started and still watch it, thank you very much. Those new people, well, this is what I do. It's bilingual, and I talk mainly about what impacts our indigenous communities locally, state, national, and international, but what impacts all people. But I try to focus on indigenous peoples. That's the program. This year, I mean, we're in September, and it's supposed to be Hispanic Heritage Month. And we have conversations, right, as to why do Mexicans actually participate in Hispanic Heritage Month. When it was Mexico in 1810, Morelos and Hidalgo, there were two Catholic priests there, I guess, were tired of their connection with the church that was taking everything to Spain and to Rome from Mexico, and the native people that were still being treated as slaves, that did a revolution against Spain, okay, in the month of September. El grito del Padre Hidalgo, right, was recognizing September 16th as when the uprising started, and it started against the Spaniards that had taken possession of all the land that belonged to the indigenous people. And even though they called it an encomienda system, not slavery, it was pretty much slavery, because they gave all the indigenous people their own last name. I keep being asked why my last name is Diaz, and I keep fighting for indigenous rights. And I keep telling them, because the Spaniards colonized us. We don't come from Spain. The last name does. My first name does, because for 500 years, over 500 years now, we lived under Spanish colonization. And even though I call it Semanahuac, right, and Anahuac, which is what in Nahuatl is the land, north, central, and Mexico isn't actually north, still part of North America, even though everybody wants to say, well, I'm an American. You don't understand what you're saying. You're basically saying, you're talking about the guy that was up there in the crow's nest and saw land. They used to, I guess, call themselves discoverers, even if there were people on the land they went to. And so it's like when you look at a star and you say, well, I'm going to name that my name because I saw it first. Well, a star, I don't know if it's a sun or part of a solar system and there's living beings in it, and they're not going to call it your name. But here, on land, they decided to call it America. And everybody's so proud. In the United States, even though it's the United States government, people here just call themselves Americans, whether it's, they don't care about Mexicans also being part of America, Central America, or South America. They own that moniker. Anyway, it was because of an Italian or Corsican or whatever he was, Americo Vespucio, that saw land, and so everybody. So, native people here revolted against Spain, but yet, and in this month, in 1810, the revolution lasted for 11 years. Both of those priests, Morelos and Hidalgo, were killed, executed as traitors. But the revolution continued until 1821, 11 years. And it did not end until November. I believe it's November 21st. So that's really the Independence Day of Mexico. It's November 21st of 1821. But everybody celebrates El Grito in September. And I guess now they've named it, the United States calls it Hispanic Heritage Month, to keep us in that, keep us colonized, right? Which is why I bring it up, because that revolution was by mainly intertribal natives that were being kept in different encomiendas by different Spaniards, and already given their name, already having existed under colonization for over 300 years, right? So you got to understand why those Spanish roots are so deep, is because they made it illegal for native people to have their own spiritual ceremonies. They destroyed all the temples, built their churches on top of them, and if they caught any elders trying to still have indigenous ceremonies, they would kill them, burn them at stake as witches or whatever, or nail them to a cross. These were the practices of the Catholic Church, Christians, okay? And that's why native people, which the northern tribes say, you're a Mexican, and you're a Mexican, you're not native, which they don't know what they're saying either, because we're native, indigenous, just simply colonized. About as bad as all the northern tribes were colonized as well, but they were colonized more by the French and the English, and then they signed treaties with the U.S. government as the U.S. government expanded, and they live on those treaties. I mean, on those reservations. In other words, as long as you stay within those boundaries that the United States imposed on them, they were not considered hostiles. If you were considered hostile, you were hunted down, killed, women, children, everything. And if you wanted to practice your own language and your own spiritual ceremonies, again, you were ostracized. Somehow you were punished. It was made illegal. The Lakota people were not allowed to speak their own, or by the government sanctioned, until 1970. Even though they say the Pueblos and the Navajo and all this were code talkers, but that was only it benefited the United States because the Europeans couldn't break the code because they didn't understand the language. But over here in the United States, it was still illegal to speak it and practice it. You know? This is how our people were colonized. Whether you were Mexican, colonized by the Spaniards, or whether you were Lakota or Crow, Blackfoot, whatever, Seminole, all this was taken from all tribal people. But anyway, I digress a little bit because I was talking about September being Spanish Heritage Month, which we're not. It should be I mean, I'm all for it for Spaniards if they want to do it, especially in Spain. They can do it all year because they're in Spain. But we're over here, and Mexicans are not. We're not from Spain. We're colonized by Spain for 500 years, but we're not from Spain. Okay. Les estaba hablando que cómo celebran el mes de la hispanidad en los Estados Unidos. No sé si lo celebran tanto para México, para Centro y Suramérica. Y también les estaba diciendo por qué se llama América. América porque está llamado sobre el nombre de Américo Vespucio, que vino con Cristo Colón y todos los que venían acá explorando y tomando posesión de tierras que ya había gente, no estaban vacantes, no estaban vacías, había millones de gente que fallecieron más por los virus que traían todos los europeos, los españoles. Mataron a millones de gente. Pero para celebrar el mes de hispanidad, cuando era revolución, que empezaron más mayoría de gente indígena en contra de los españoles, con los padres Morelos y Hidalgo, que los fusilaron, ¿no? Antes, porque como todos saben, la Revolución de México duró 11 años. Empezó en 1810 y no terminó hasta 1821, en noviembre, no en septiembre. Pero empezó en septiembre con el grito, su opósito. Pero era una revolución en contra de España, no en favor de España. No en favor de siendo colonizados, en contra de la colonización. Solo que es absurdo para mí que celebren el mes de septiembre para reconocer raíces hispanos, cuando eso en septiembre es cuando empezó la revolución. El grito del padre Hidalgo era en contra de los españoles, no en favor. Llámenme si quieren, siempre enseño mi número de teléfono y cómo comunicarse conmigo si quieren averiguar esto. Pero es lo que es. La gente indígenas, mayoría de gentes indígenas, ¿no? Y mestizos, que este programa se llama Mestizos Experience, la experiencia mestiza, que eran la mayoría de los que estaban en revolución, ¿no? Y duraron 11 años en revolución. Y siempre les digo de Guerrero, ¿no? Guerrero, Vicente Guerrero, el segundo presidente de la República de México, porque el primero no era actualmente, todavía era república, pero era monarquía, y empezó a cambiar. Que era mulato, ¿no? Porque era medio indígena y medio africano. Fue el primer presidente, si quieren decir, del continente de las Américas. Solo que no fue Barack Obama el primero, fue Vicente Guerrero de México, el segundo presidente de la República de México. Y él fue el que abolizó la esclavitud, y por eso también hizo la revolución. Aquí los gringos aquí del norte del río Bravo, que todavía querían tener esclavos de africanos, por eso empezaron la República de Texas, ¿no? Porque querían seguir comprando y vendiendo y siendo dueños de personas negras, morenas, como esclavos. Solo que cuando dice Texas que empezaron porque querían libertad y todo esto, lo demás, justicia y quién sabe qué más, pura mentira, lo quería nomás para los güeros. Así no como quiere Donald Trump ahora. Donald Trump quiere regresarse a esos tiempos cuando los blancos eran superiores y tenían oportunidad. Y les voy a decir esto, mira, ahí está la acción afirmativa que pasaron en los 70s para incluir a razas no blancas, ¿no? Así como mexicanos o de piel café, ¿no? Si no puertorriqueños, con lo que sea, y de piel negra o chinos o que puedan, porque los chinos como que ellos dominan a ir a los colegios, ¿no? Aquí en los Estados Unidos le llamamos colegios, ¿no? Que vayan a las universidades. Esa oportunidad ahora se va a ser negada porque personas como Donald Trump, cuando fue presidente, puso jueces en la Corte Suprema para poder irse para atrás y cambiar las leyes y negarle la educación más alta a las gentes que estaban con la acción afirmativa alcanzando esos niveles. No nomás eso, pero también le está negando los derechos al cuerpo de las mujeres, ¿no? Y todavía hay hispanos, latinos, en apoyo de este menso naranjado de Donald Trump. Pues aquí por eso pueden celebrar el mes de haber sido esclavos de España, en este mes, de lugar de celebrando la revolución en contra de España y si diciendo, no queremos este mes que se llame el mes de los hispanos, no queremos que se llame el mes de la revolución, fuera mejor, ¿no? Anyway, I'm talking now. I went into more political nationwide, which is affirmative action and the reproductive systems of women, right? Which is by the Supreme Court have been negated, taken away now. Roe versus Wade, gone. Affirmative action, gone. Because when Trump was president, he put in three justices, right? Three Supreme Court judges that he owns. And so, see, the Republicans, especially people like Donald Trump, that are connected with everybody that has money, that actually run the government, right? I mean, they run it because they're rich, and they do what they want. If they want to return back to the old-fashioned Christian KKK type of government, they can. That's what he wants. That is what he calls make America great again, right? To make you feel as much as a slave as possible by denying you affirmative action, which means finally non-whites were being able, I know that they call it a legacy, but legacies were mainly white because they were the only ones that were attending all Yale, Harvard, and Princeton, and all these old schools. There were no blacks, there were no Mexicans until affirmative action. But now it's taken away. It's gone. And everybody says, oh, because we don't want quotas, you have to do it on merit. Well, how do you get merit when all these IQ tests are fashioned for Anglos? So how are you going to score high when it's all for Anglo? It's personalities and characteristics. It's not aimed at. I would dare an Anglo to pass a test in my way, how I grew up, what I saw, what I know to be common to me, not what is common to their lifestyle. See? So that is how you test a person and then say, well, we're going to give you this opportunity or deny you this opportunity, by merit. So the education system that we began as children, well, now we're pretty much assimilated. It's not back like in my day. When I started school, I couldn't even speak English. Barely spoke Spanish. So I was held back 2 years, first 2 years of school. So to say, well, you merit this scholarship or you merit being offered it, no. And that was our case. A lot of our people dropped out. Our dropout rate in San Antonio, especially either in any of the Southside school districts or Edgewood school district, was over 50%. Higher. Terrible. It's improved, but now to be denying people affirmative action use to be able to transcend and go to higher education without their parents having to mortgage their homes and go in debt just to try to do it, is going back to the old, to making America great again. And you guys, you that are celebrating Hispanic month instead of celebrating the month of revolution, that Mexicans and indigenous Mexicans fought against Spain to gain their freedom, to have a republic, form a republic, which really still Spain kind of owns, right? Because they had all the government set up anyway and kept, kind of like what the Republicans do. They just keep their people in place and keep on going with their same type of government, which is oppressing the poor. Even though you just get so used to it that you don't even know it's oppression. You don't even know that you're being suppressed, that your rights are being pushed down somehow. You're assimilating, and the more that you assimilate, the more that it feels normal. The more it feels normal to be trying to be Anglo or trying to be Hispanic, when these were the ones that colonized and committed genocide on our continent and against all indigenous people. Why most of us don't speak our languages, don't practice our ceremonies. Instead, we're Christians, which the Christian church was the one that committed all sorts of atrocities on our lands. But now it's benign. Now it's good. Now they're the ones like Catholic Charities that are helping the homeless or feeding the hungry. Now, it didn't start out that way, okay? Now it's like I say, once you're assimilated to it, then they'll give you a room to stay overnight. Or they'll feed you in the morning or noon or something if you're hungry. Now, back then they grabbed it out of your mouth and they fed themselves. That's what Donald Trump would like to do and say, I can do this and still not feel bad because we are superior. There is no chosen people. If you're alive today and you're walking around, you're chosen. Because you survived birth. And if you keep surviving every day, you're chosen. When you die, I guess you're chosen for the grave. There's no such, that the Israelis are not chosen by God and they don't have any hold they shouldn't have, even though most of them own a lot of the infrastructure of the United States and other industrialized countries. Like I say, they keep putting their people in place so that they can maintain that hold. And we just keep on surviving and keep on thinking it's normal. So that's how it goes. I would like to tell everybody, don't vote for the orange guy this year. It's coming up in a couple of months. Vote for anybody else. Hopefully Green Party. But if not, then vote Democratic. But don't vote for the orange guy. I mean, that's insane. That's voting against your own interests, unless you're a billionaire. Then those are your interests. But other than that, if you want to be an isolationist. I think the United States turned into an isolationist sometime after World War I, and they really started getting hard against Mexico. They didn't want Mexico to form any ties with Europe, especially Germany, because Germany was trying to form ties. Those are oppressed countries. Mexico, any country, Honduras, Nicaragua. It's like I've heard. The land itself, those nations, they're not poor. The ones that are poor are the people, because of the oppression, and most of it is from the United States. I mean, not so much is those billionaires, because they want to go in there and they want to mine areas, they want to build dams, they want to do whatever for themselves, something that benefits them, and so they get those people that are governing there, they give them some money, and they give them to pass legislation that will benefit them. That is how things are run, and that is how people are kept poor. And banking systems of those nations are kept poor so that the dollar stays strong, right? When you say, well, you're here, you should be happy about it. I am, but there's no reason why we all can't exist on the same plane, on the same level. Why their monetary system can't be as strong as ours. Why their labor laws can't be as strong as ours. Yeah, everything would cost more, but we'd all have the same amount of money. So then we'd be able to look at the rich and say, isn't $100 and some trillion enough for you? Shouldn't the rest of that go into the infrastructure of the government for housing, to support the poor, the veterans, all these issues that are up there? Shouldn't that be enough to say, let's put a ceiling on you guys? Come on. If you want to keep on being innovative and creative and all this and coming up with different ways to better society, fine. But do you have to keep on making billions and billions of dollars while people are still working for $7.25, $10? Now they're saying, well, $10 and $15 we're doing it so that you can have a better life. And yet that's not enough. Cost of living keeps rising and rising. If you're a billionaire, you don't care. You own homes all around the world, own businesses all around the world. So how can you say that you're patriotic to this one government when you're dealing throughout the world and creating the laws and creating the banking system, how it works, and we think we're a part of that, and we're going to vote for this billionaire that's just going to keep on making things worse? This should not be, September should not be recognized as Hispanic Heritage Month. It should be Mexican Indigenous Peoples Revolution Month, and just go on from there, because the Mexican indigenous people finally won something. It was snatched out of their mouth by the nobles, by the Spaniards that are still governing, but it was their victory in November of 1821. Antonio Diaz, Mestizo Experience, Tlazocamate, Tosticate.
Ishochitin kwikat mitotiani, yana hey yoino, yana hey yoino, hey yana hey ne. Ashkanin te pahtia to yolotzin, hey yana hey ne roa. Moyo kojatzin, hey yana hey ne. Titek maktiliat Tlazocamate kali hey yana hey ne roa. Tlazocamate kali peyo zinquicat lo que nawa que hey yana hey ne roa. Ishochitin kwikat mitotiani, yana hey yoino, yana hey yoino, hey yana hey ne. Ashkanin te pahtia to yolotzin, hey yana hey ne yoa. Moyo kojatzin, hey yana hey ne. Titek maktiliat Tlazocamate kali hey yana hey ne yoa. Tlazocamate kali peyo zinquicat lo que nawa que hey yana hey ne roa. Ishochitin kwikat mitotiani, yana hey yoino, yana hey yoino, hey yana hey ne. Ashkanin te pahtia to yolotzin, hey yana hey ne roa. Moyo kojatzin, hey yana hey ne. Titek maktiliat Tlazocamate kali hey yana hey ne roa. Tlazocamate kali peyo zinquicat lo que nawa que hey yana hey ne roa. Ishochitin kwikat mitotiani, yana hey yoino, yana hey yoino, hey yana hey ne. Ashkanin te pahtia to yolotzin, hey yana hey ne yoa. Moyo kojatzin, hey yana hey ne. Titek maktiliat Tlazocamate kali hey yana hey ne yoa. Tlazocamate kali peyo zinquicat lo que nawa que hey yana hey ne roa.
¿Qué onda, carnal? Dice mi gente, la raza está abajo y tú estás indiferente. Prefieres cerrar los ojos, no vi nada. Estabas ocupado por andar en la tomada. Te gusta tirar el cruising todo el día, buscando a las mujeres como si el mundo acabaría. Pero no sabías que tú podías continuar tu educación para superarte en la vida. Hermano joven, levanta tu frente y siente el orgullo de ser un descendiente de los aztecas, los incas y los mayas. Ayúdame a pelear y vencer.